this evening's story, the Harrowing Amora Carson story, it is harrowing, as they all are. There's no point. I go to give a warning, and I think there's no point. They're all horrific. So there's no point putting warnings out. So it's an adult crime channel. You can imagine that it's going to be horrific. So there we go. All right. So it's Amora Blaine Carson, born on the 12th of November 2007 in East Texas. It's an American story, okay? Her mum, Jessica Carson, her dad, Arlen Motina. Now, Jessica and Arlen broke up straight after Amora was born. And he never really had any further contact with her. I believe he was in the military. No further contact with her. So Jessica and Amora lived at the family home along with Jessica's mum, which would be Amora's grandmother, and her name's Heather, and then Jessica's brother Drake, who would be Amora's uncle. Okay, so they're living in the house. Now Amora herself, oh my god, beautiful. I say it all the time, but the chubbiness of this baby and the big blue, oh, she's just beautiful little girl. Genuinely is. Go away and have a look at her. It's just adorable. It was said that she was a happy little baby. You know, always happy, always smiling. And as for Jessica, Heather, who is obviously Jessica's mum, Amora's name, she said Jessica was a great mum. Now at this point, Jessica, she's only 18. She's a very young mum, okay? Wasn't expected. She was doing very well at school. No one kind of expected her to become a mum so young, but she did. And it said that she just thrived in it. She was a very, very good mum to Amora, sorry. So, we come to Jessica's dad, who would be Amora's granddad, okay? Now, he'd actually committed suicide when Jessica was 10, okay? And she'd been the one to find him, okay? So Jessica had her teenage years were quite rough. Had to have therapy, you know, she was really struggling. Like I say, she found her dad, and I just can't imagine. I can't imagine that. So as I said, she had a few rough teenage years, and like I say, even though this has led to her becoming such a young mom and not being with Amora's dad anymore, she doted on her. That's everything I've looked into. It said that she genuinely did. She doted on her. Okay? Now, we get to the early summer of 2008. Okay? And Jessica had begun chatting to her friends on MySpace. Now, I don't know if you remember MySpace. It was kind of a social media app. It was Facebook before Facebook. I had MySpace briefly, but I was quite late to the party, so I ended up moving on to Facebook very quickly. But she did, and her profile on there, she had a very attractive picture on there. She would, you know, even though she's a mum now, she's still, you know, represented herself very well. She was very well dressed. Like I say, makeup all was done, hair all was done. You know, she always looked really good. Jessica did. So I'll say why I'm saying that in a minute. Now, it was here on MySpace that she met Blaine Milam, who was also 18 at this time. Okay. And the couple, well, they get into a relationship very, very quickly. Like, ridiculously quick, okay? Now, I know they're young and teenagers. They do. They fall in and out of relationships very quickly. I do know that. But Jessica's a mum now, okay? So to fall into this relationship as quick as she does, a mom, you know, Heather, she's not overly happy about it. You know, this is a young 18-year-old lad. You know, most 18-year-old lads aren't really that interested in becoming a dad or stepdad, you know, straight away that soon. But Blaine, when he met Amora, which was very quickly, he seemed to really bond with her. He seemed to really, you know, get close with Amora as he did with Jessica. He'd play with her, he'd sit on the floor and, you know, make her laugh. You know, the family, although they were dubious at just how quick this was moving, they had to say, you know, he seemed like he could possibly become maybe a stepdad to Amora. You know, that's how it seemed. And oh boy, did he. Because very quickly, he wasn't calling her his stepdaughter, he was calling her his actual daughter. Always a red flag to me, that is. When it happens that soon, I mean, years into a relationship, dad's no longer on the scene, you know, child's, you know, looking at the new partner as a dad, and then it's discussed, and then maybe, you know, then it would be appropriate to look at that child as your daughter. But we're talking a matter of months, and when I say months, I'm talking maybe 2. You know, this was very, very, very quick, okay? But like I say, it seemed that he was being very sweet with her, okay, at first. All right? So the family become very, very concerned when Jessica takes Amora to go and live with Blaine, okay? Now, Blaine's actually living in Longwood in Texas, all right? And the pair very quickly get engaged. This is all very fast-tracked, all really, really, really quickly, all right? And like I say, it's all within a couple of months. It was late summer now, and the family begins to notice that Jessica, she stops visiting as often with Amora. You know, they start to notice again. All of this, everything I'm about to tell you, is all within about a 6-7 month period. So when I say it fast, it genuinely is, okay? So they start to notice she's not visiting as often. And when she was visiting, they were noticing she wasn't doing her hair as much, or taking as much pride in her hair and her makeup and her appearance as she once had. Now remember, she's 18 still, and that would be, again, a real red flag that all of a sudden she's starting to become withdrawn and unkept, you know, and as I mentioned, she's not seeing them very often. She starts kind of freezing them out, all right? So now, where they move, all right, so that she moves in with Blaine, as I've mentioned, it's into an apartment in Longwood, Texas. I don't know if I'd mentioned that, all right? Now, Blaine's dad, around this time, okay, passed. He died of a stroke, I believe. And Blaine was absolutely devastated. He was very, very close with his dad, all right? So this is around that time, and he, as I mentioned, Jessica has become unkept and quite withdrawn, and it's because Blaine had started to become quite controlling with her. And then you throw in the fact his dad recently passed away too. His reaction to that was to make sure he kept Jessica very close to him and Amora, all right? So he begins controlling every part of her life, okay? He shows he's very jealous. He accuses of her lying constantly. Said she's, you know, she's lying about everything. Proves he's got quite a quick temper. Now, when I'm talking about this, it does say that none of this was ever ever in Amora's way. I have worded that really badly wrong. It was never, the words are right on the tip of my tongue. It was never directed towards Amora. My goodness. It was all directed towards Jessica, okay, at the very beginning, as far as I know, okay. He also controlled her social media, so he would be on there and he'd be talking as her to her friends, to her family, you know, and she knew he wasn't doing it behind her back. She was very aware of it, but she was allowing him to do this through this control, or it was part control, it was part trusting what he was saying, and also trying to prove that she wasn't lying. I mean, this is so much for so early on, okay? So, she also had to go to work with him, it was said, and wait for him to finish so he could keep an eye on her. So he knew she wasn't doing anything when he couldn't see her. I mean, crazy. Now, let me tell you a little bit about Blaine, okay? Blaine had a history of troubling behaviour, let's say, all right? And in March of 2007, all right, he'd broken into his neighbour's home, all right? And he entered the bedroom of their 13-year-old daughter, okay? He went through her underwear drawer. I mean, that, I just can't imagine that she's asleep and she's got this grown lad who would have been, I think, 17 at the time, in her bedroom, looking in her underwear drawer. And then it was said that he cut images out of an adult magazine and wrote notes on these images saying that that's what he wanted to do with her. Very, very, very odd behaviour. He was charged with second-degree felony, he was charged with a second-degree felony, criminal solicitation of a minor. Now, he was supposed to spend 6 months in jail. That's what he was supposed to spend. He only spent just over a month in jail. Okay. So, had he spent the full time that he was supposed to, then maybe what I'm telling you wouldn't have happened. Okay. Now, he was released on probation, so he did a month and he was let out on probation. And the rules of that was he was not supposed to be around children unless they were his own, which obviously he didn't have any, or siblings. They were the only children he was allowed to be around. That I don't get as well, you know. It's questionable behaviour. Should you still be around your own kids if you're capable of doing that? Anyway, these were the rules, okay? So it was around this time that Jessica and Amora had moved into his apartment, okay? And what it was is this was within that apartment. They moved in with his mum, okay? Now, when his dad had passed, okay, as I mentioned, don't forget Jessica's dad had committed suicide, right? They came up with the marvellous, great idea of getting an Ouija board while they were living with his mum. Okay. Let's contact our dads. Let's contact our dads now and see what's happening. See if we can talk to them. I mean, it shows their immaturity. It genuinely does. It genuinely does. But so this is what they decide to do. And then around this time, and they're doing this, Jessica believes that this Ouija board has told her dad didn't commit suicide. Her mom really killed him. And she starts to kind of separate from reality. around this time, so we believe, okay? And she starts making phone calls to her mum, accusing her of killing her dad. Obviously, Blaine's very upset over the death of his dad, although his dad died from a stroke. It wasn't, it wasn't something more sinister. They're both, from what I can tell, kind of rolling each other up in these delusions. It's all getting very, very messy. Now, don't forget, he's still under probation. But Jessica comes up with the idea that if they leave his mum's apartment and get a place of their own, that maybe they can escape these demons that are obviously become involved from the Ouija board. And it was just crazy. Then she started saying she could see a demon in Blaine. It was, the fact that this has happened, I'll say it again, over such a short amount of time, is crazy to me. Okay, it's crazy. So basically they move house and they move into a trailer in Rusk County, just outside of Tatum in Texas. Okay, now they move into this trailer, and this trailer apparently is kind of in the middle of nowhere. There's not many people around. And they try and give this a go and say they'll get away from the demons. And while all this is going on, all right, Blaine, I don't know about Jessica. I haven't seen that it was her as well, but Blaine is also doing crystal meth. Might have a little something to do with it now, maybe. So it's a really dysfunctional house now, but so it's said, Amora is still, she's meeting a milestone, she's still being treated very well, if not as Jessica's not as attentive as she was originally, but it said Blaine was still, playing nicely with her, still treating her okay. So this is what we're told anyway. Okay, so he begins to play on the fact that Jessica believes he's possessed. He starts to play on it a little bit, and he says, now when I say played on it, I don't know if he truly was also in this delusion or he was playing into Jessica's believed delusion. I struggle with these things. I'm only going on what I've read. I do struggle with believing a lot of these things, but I'll tell the story how I've learned about it. And he plays on this delusion anyway, and he starts saying, yeah, I am possessed, and but I can talk to God, and God's telling me that you're lying all the time. So this is what he's saying to Jessica. So you ramp the controlling up, but now she believes that her partner's possessed by a demon, and this demon has conversations with God, which it's kind of, isn't that an oxymoron? Would you call that an oxymoron? That he's got a demon in him talking to God. Two separate things as far as I'm concerned, but who am I? So all of this is going on. It's a very dysfunctional household, as I've mentioned. And we come to the 1st of December 2008, okay? So I know it was all very chaotic, everything I've been telling you, and it really is. But we come up to this day, okay? And at this point, little Amora is 13 months old, okay? So she's not long gone past her first birthday. Oh, I can't emphasise enough just how beautiful this little girl is. Okay. Now, on this day, Blaine wakes Jessica up. Okay. And he wakes her up quite ramped up, saying, Amora's possessed. We knew it was coming, didn't we? But here it is. Amora is now possessed. Okay. And he told her what had happened was he'd woken up in the middle of the night and he'd seen her walking around the trailer, and Jessica's obviously like, she can't walk, because she's not walking yet. But he's like, yes, she was. She was walking from room to room. And this is his so-called proof that she's possessed. Now, I don't know. Maybe just throwing it out there. As a mum, wouldn't you, knowing your daughter can't walk, she can't walk yet, wouldn't you go and see your daughter and be like, walk then, show me, you know? But I'm assuming he'd have been like, no, maybe she's only showing it to me. No, Jessica's that deluded now. Of course she believes him, all right? So she's like, well, what do we do? What do we do about this? And he's like, don't worry. I've spoken to God and he's told me how to do an exorcism. Okay? So, rather than Jessica going, okay, one sec, and going out into where Aurora is, getting her and running as fast as her legs will take her, no, she goes, okay, yeah, that sounds good. That sounds good. Let's perform this exorcism. Let's get Satan out of her. Okay? So he's like, I'll do it. I can do this. You wait in the bedroom. And she does. Okay? So Jessica's in the bedroom watching TV while Blaine goes into what, in a sense, is Amora's room. And he closes the door. And we now know Jessica hears screaming, crying, wailing from that bedroom. And does she do anything to help her little girl? The little girl she, not a few months previous to this, supposedly doted on. So everyone's saying, even her own friends, as witnesses said, she was a really good mom. Does she go and help her when she hears this screaming? No, she turns the TV on. She turns it up just to drown out that sound. She doesn't want to listen to it. Okay. It's just awful. So he's performing his exorcism now. That's what he's doing. He's performing his exorcism, okay? And he comes out after a few hours, and he says to Jessica, look, tell you what, why don't I sell my soul to the devil, okay, to save Amora? And Jessica goes, no, don't do that. Don't do that. I prefer her to go to heaven than to let the devil have her. Okay? So he goes back into the bedroom where the screaming, the wailing, the crying carries on. And this goes on for about 30 hours. 30, I said there, 30 hours. They actually go to the shop in between Blaine and Jessica Joe. They actually go to the shop in between. And she goes to the bedroom when they get back. And he's like, she's under the bed. She's under the bed. Leave us. And she does. She leaves them. So we get to 10:37 a.m. of the 2nd of December. Oh, right. So it's the next day. Right? And Blaine calls 911. Very matter of fact. Not in any sort of, he's not excited. He's not wound up. He's not hysterical. Quite calm. And he says, my name's Blaine. Bear with me, what's his surname again? Oh God, I haven't even tried to remember. Blaine Milam. Blaine Milam, okay. He says, I'm Blaine Milam, and I found my daughter dead. That's the 911 call, okay. So the ambulance arrives, and they walk in to see little Amora on the bedroom floor with Jessica and Blaine either side of her. Okay. And the paramedics, they said all they could see was just this child's face it was so badly bruised, it just looked like one big bruise on her face. Okay. Now, by the time the police get there, the ambulance tell them we can't try and save her. Rigor mortis is already set in. There's nothing we can do. And little Amora Carson has died at 13 months old. Okay. Now, as I mentioned, she had bruises all over her face, but she also had bruises all over her body. She was black and blue. Right. Now the autopsy. Okay, the autopsy that's done. But very quickly, Jessica and Blaine, their reaction, their statement to the police when the police begin talking to them is they'd left the house for an hour to go and speak to one of their neighbours about doing some work on their land. And when they came back, Amora was, she was still breathing, apparently, but she was in a hole in the bathroom floor. And the ambulance are like, there's no way she could have been alive. Rigor mortis already set in. They're lying. Okay. So now the autopsy is done. Alright. The manner of death is homicidal violence and possible strangulation. Okay. Basically, there were so many injuries that they couldn't tell which injury killed her, so they couldn't actually give a cause of death. She had so many skull fractures, so many. I've heard it likened to a jigsaw puzzle. Her brain had been torn. She had spiral fractures to her arms and her legs where they'd been twisted. She's 13 months old. 18 fractured ribs. 18. 24 adult bite marks to her head and face. When the paramedics had walked in, or it was the police, I'm not sure which one it was, but they saw these marks on her while she was on the floor, and they thought it looked like a Coke can shape. They hadn't realised that all these marks were bite marks. Right? 24 of them. She's tiny. As I mentioned, she was bruised from head to toe. She had bleeding behind her eyes. She had strangulation marks on her neck. She had a lacerated tongue from blunt force trauma. She had a torn liver. And then finally, her genitals were so badly damaged that they'd become one. Oh, God. And all of that was being done to her daughter while she was in the bedroom watching TV and turning it up. So the police, of course, arrest the pair. Okay, and as I mentioned, at first they said it must have been someone else because they'd come home to this, they'd left her in a crib, and when they come home, she was in a hole in the bathroom floor. Okay, and so they separate them both and they interrogate them both separately. Okay, and both of them at separate times refer to Amora as that baby. Blaine, he's known her for a few months. No excuse. There's no excusing here, but he's known her for a couple of months. That's her mum, and she refers to her as that baby. All right. And then Jessica finally, she admits to Blaine doing an exorcism on her daughter, and explains what happens, what we now know. Well, do we know? We don't fully know what happened in that bedroom, because Blaine, well, he never admitted it. So we can only really go on what Jessica said, and of course what the autopsy showed. But there was also, when they searched the house and got a warrant to search the house, or the trailer, should I say. Oh, there was blood all over that bedroom. There was blood all over that bedroom. Okay, there was blood on the duvet. There was blood in nappies and wipes. There was blood on all her baby clothes. They also found a bottle of lubricant. Okay, and a pair of Blaine's trousers had blood on the crotch. The blood that they found related to all those things was all found to be Amora's. Oh, guys, just awful. Now, 1 second. Yeah, they'd also found that morning, when he'd called for 911, he'd actually already called his sister an hour beforehand. His sister's called Teresa, his older sister. And she'd said to him, call 911. But he waited another hour. So was she already dead then? Or could he have got her help? But there was, the autopsy said there was so many injuries to her that any one of them, any number of them could have killed her. They just don't know when she would have died. Oh, God. What she was awake for. Now, Blaine, then, while he's, they're in jail now. They're being interrogated and everything else. And when he gets a call that he can make, he calls his sister, Teresa again, the older sister. Okay, now I've heard two things. I've heard that he asked her to go to the trailer because he's hidden something and he wants her to get it for him. She told their aunt. The aunt automatically called 911 because she knew his sister was going to do it for him. She was going to get this evidence and take it away from the trailer for him. So the aunt called the police. I've also heard that the sister wasn't going to do it and she got the call from him and it was her that called the police. So I've heard both, okay? Either way, the police are called and they get round to the trailer. They've got another warrant and they begin searching underneath the trailer now. And they come across a pipe wrench. Have a look at what a pipe wrench looks like, because I didn't realise. I had no idea of a wrench. Pipe wrench wasn't what I had in my head. It's an awful looking tool, okay? And this pipe wrench is found under the trailer, hidden in a plastic bag, kind of between the trailer floor and the bathroom floor. So possibly that hole that was in the bathroom floor. There was a hole in the bathroom floor. It just was Amora in there, okay? Which, when they got there, she was obviously on the bedroom floor, so. But they find this pipe wrench, okay? When they do tests on it, they find that it's got the same lubricant that they found that had blood on it. That same lubricant was on the pipe wrench, and that lubricant was also found in Amora's nappy. I don't need to really go into any more detail. Okay, I've already listed her injuries. absolute beast of a man. Ah. Now, the bite marks, they brought in an orthodontist. I think I'm pronouncing that right too. They tested, they got a mould of Blaine's teeth, Jessica's teeth, and also Blaine's brother, which I don't know much about, and I'll only mention him briefly now, but they got his, like, a mould of his teeth as well. Now, none of the bite marks were related to the brother, so there's nothing further on him. Jessica was cleared of all the bite marks, bar one. Couldn't quite say if that was her. And Blaine, 8 of them were found to be 100% him. There's 24 found on her. I'm presuming they just couldn't, maybe how she'd been bitten, they just couldn't match those, but 8 of them were Blaine's. Safe to say the rest of them were, but was Mum involved? Did Mum get involved after all? Because this is what Blaine and his defence are saying. And his mum, she was like, it was found that he had an IQ of around 74. Saying he's intellectually disabled. He wasn't capable of this. He was a caring boy. He just loved cartoons. He was a simple lad. And they were all kind of pointing at Jessica and saying he wouldn't have been capable of doing this. Now, they were both charged with capital murder. Okay, it's Texas. You know, death penalty's on the table. But Jessica, yeah, she's cute. She pleads guilty. Okay. Her defence, although she's got religious delusions, she also testifies against Blaine. She suffers with severe depression. You know, she makes sure they get all the doctors involved with her. Now, I'm not saying, I've told this story as I've researched it, and I'm not saying that none of that's true, in the sense of who did it, should I say. But I don't know. I'm not saying he didn't. I'm just saying, did she really just sit in the bedroom that whole time? Or is there a bit more to it? You know, it just all seems a little bit sketchy to me. But it does say due to her finding her dad dead after he committed suicide and her not getting maybe all the help that she needed, then becoming a young mom, then being under this control of this, you know, man who convinced her he was a demon, and, you know, she just wanted to, she felt she was doing the best thing for her daughter. Oh, yeah, because beating and torturing and sexually assaulting your 13-month-old baby, yeah, that's a way to help her. That's ace, that is. I just couldn't. Anyway, Jessica, she pled guilty, as I mentioned. She was sentenced to life with no parole, which I'm very glad about. Very well deserved. You know, all her family came out and they said, you know, they don't understand. She was a great mum. But also friends came forward who'd said they had seen how she'd been originally, but then they did see, I mean, she was only allowed to see this one particular friend twice because Blaine had put a stop to it. But she said that when she did visit, she was concerned because Jessica was showing signs of becoming neglectful to Amora. But it was said that Blaine was still playing with her. He was still involved with Amora. So, I don't know. But the Blaine's defence, they tried to blame Jessica. Obviously, I mentioned they tried to say he was intellectually disabled, which was denied. Okay, that was denied. Didn't wash at all. Okay. So in May of 2010, he was found guilty of capital murder, okay? And the two sentences that the jury were asked which one they wanted to hand down. They could either hand down life without parole, as they had with Jessica, or they could hand down death, okay? And I suppose as a jury member, and you're having to look at pictures, and you're fully aware of what happened to these children, I've no doubt that there are bits that we have been, not filled in on. We don't need, I suppose you can imagine, you don't need to know, I suppose, I'm not wording it right, but they would have had to have known a lot more than we do. And they come back with death. They sentence him to death. Okay? And at that point, he was 19 years old. Alright? So, it said, though, that while they were waiting for either his guilty verdict or his sentencing to come in, when it was announced that they had to go back into the courtroom, because obviously when the jury goes to deliberate, the defendant goes and waits away, don't they? They go and wait in a room with their lawyer and everything else. And his lawyer, the defence, said that when they were told to come back, Blaine had actually put a cartoon on, okay? And when they were told to come back in, he was like, can't I just watch the end of this, though? And it wasn't that he was trying to put off hearing what his sentencing was. His defence said it was like he didn't understand the gravity of it at all. And he just wanted to watch his cartoon. And he got brought in, and as I said, he was sentenced to death. Now, his death sentence was stayed, meaning kind of postponed, in 2019 and in 2021, okay? But he was actually executed. I think this might be the first or one of very few stories that I've done where the execution has happened, and it did. He was executed by lethal injection on the 25th of September 2025, so just a few months ago. And it was said that right up until the end, there was no remorse. Even when he was giving his last statement, it was like, I thank God, because, he's no longer possessed, maybe, and he's turned to God, don't they all? He wanted to thank God, and he wanted to thank his lawyers, and he wanted to thank the people in the prison. No apology. No apology to Amora. No apology to her family. Just no sign of remorse whatsoever. It was just all these thank yous to people who'd been around him. Because he'd been on death row for that point for 17 years? So, yeah, is it 15, 17 years? That's right. No, it would have been 15 years, but he'd been arrested 17 years. That's right. I'm trying to get it right in my head. But he was 35 years old. And, yeah, just nothing. Just nothing. I mean, you're sentenced. You're about to die. You're about to die. Why not just apologise to her? I mean, let's face it, he's not going to meet her. If you believe in, heaven and hell, obviously she's gone to heaven, he won't be meeting her. Let's just say that. And Mommy Dearest, she'll never get out. She's like without parole, but I just don't know how I feel about this story. I didn't mention it because I only read it once, but it said there was a hammer involved as well in this story, and he'd used a hammer on her. It was just, she was 30, she was a baby. She hadn't even made it to toddler. She was a baby. She couldn't even walk. And the mum who should have protected her listened. It's not even like she was out of the house. She was in there. She heard it. That was her mum. And I just, yeah, I just think she should have got death too. I don't. I suppose she's never going to get out, and, that's something, but I just think it should have been both of them. It should have. But that was the Harrowing Amora Carson story. Sorry there was a bit of chopping and changing at the beginning, but finding this information out about this case, the very beginning, and the backstory for these parents, there was a lot of this might have happened or this may have happened. It was really hard even, at first trying to find her biological dad's name. It hasn't been as publicised as it should. Okay, that's, but yeah, just an awful case. I don't even know what to say after that. I don't. It was just horrible, absolutely horrible. But thank you so much for joining me. As I mentioned, that's the Harrowing Amora Carson case story. Thank you so much for joining me. I really do appreciate it. I'm here every Thursday with stories you might not have heard of. And I'm over on the TikTok if you want to have a look. But other than that, thank you so much for joining me this evening. I genuinely appreciate it. And I will see you next Thursday. Thank you. Take care.